Hello there. I'm Sean B.W. Parker, artist and writer and representative of Empowering the Innocent, here to give my 2024 in review cultural news of the year, what's been happening as we go into 2025. And the year started with Claudine Gay at Harvard, the president there, being dismissed for having plagiarized her thesis some years ago. In a bad year for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that was a pretty bad start. The president going down after having supported the Hamas people, terrorists, over the October the 7th massacre the year before. So, yeah, she was exposed by that and then taken down for essentially having falsified her credentials. And over on this side of the pond, Lucy Letby remains in prison, 4 years into her stay after remand and then conviction in 2023 for the murder of 9 babies and the attempted murder of 7 more, and various trials. The controversies grow day on day with the Thirlwell inquiry in happening, which is meant to find out why this happened in the first place. And voices such as Peter Hitchens and Sonia Poulton and Jeremy Vine and John Sweeney and David Davis MP is going to ask questions in January, are saying maybe it didn't happen in the first place. Much evidence is pointing towards that, and the tango of public opinion, as they say, has pretty much turned on it, and so many skeptical voices are saying something's gone very wrong here, and this young woman in prison for life needs her case looking at. So she'll go to the CCRC, Criminal Cases Review Commission, this year with Mark MacDonald, and try her hand and see if they acquiesce to the mounting evidence. Mr. Julian Assange was set free this year, or was it end of last year? But it's news story. And yeah, Julian Assange, who spent 10 years in the Ecuadorian embassy, banged up in London, and then another 4 years afterwards at Belmarsh, London's harshest prison, with no charge against the WikiLeaks dumps, allegedly putting the lives of military personnel in danger for exposing the war crimes of America and Britain during the Iraq War. So yeah, journalism is not a crime, as he would say, and his wife Stella was delighted to have him out, and and he's been quite quiet ever since, but probably strategizing his way forward. And in May, June, beginning of summer anyway, Labour came to power in Britain after 14 years of Tory rule, and they got in off the back of the country being tired of the Tories messing about over the last 4 years, maybe the whole time, but everyone has their own reasons for not liking the Tories, whether it's Boris Johnson getting Brexit done, then going net zero, and then opening the door after Brexit to the world instead, and landing us allegedly in the immigration position that we find ourselves in now, which is, however liberal you are, is causing great ructions across the world as things are strained. The relations between people are strained, and the binaries of social media don't make any of that any easier. Problematically for Keir Starmer, right after they got in, was the murder of 3 little girls in Southport by allegedly a young man who will go on trial next year, a young Welshman, and it absolutely broke the country's spirit, and lots of people responded emotionally, as you do to such a story, and the authorities went quiet on it, and the results of that quietness was riots, protests. The far right were involved, but also many normal outraged people, including Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Tory councillor sent down for 2 years, I think, and for a tweet that she deleted within 2 hours, had done after a glass of wine, which was inciting violence, but no violence actually came of it. I don't know if any violence ever does come from postings. According to Andrew Doyle, there's no evidence for it. But she's along with a bunch of others who were doing various things in those protests, who were sent down by a judiciary who seemed to be panicking about what was going on. So yeah, free speech is having difficult times in Britain at the moment, whilst in America, Donald Trump has come to power for his second term starting in January 2025. Him against Kamala was very much um, the that white president from a few years ago opposite this black lady from now, who the problem is that Trump speaks off the cuff, he's not scripted, and he says what he thinks and what he feels, however rude that might be. And Kamala is barely able to get anything out without a script. So it seemed so. And Biden did say she was a DEI hire when he made her vice president. Thus she was. And the things that were coming out of her mouth, the majority of the voting majority of America weren't going for it, and it feels like a voting with your feet on DEI because the institutions have had enough of it, the companies have had enough of it. It's only a few right-on progressives who are still persisting with what is a race to the bottom, and everyone can feel DEI being very much that. And in the terms of progressivism, back in Britain was the long tail of Me Too, wound its way across the country with Greg Wallace, who's a MasterChef barrow boy, employed by the BBC 10 years or so ago, to be a London Cockney geezer, speaking honest truths, and but also apparently walking into kitchens with just a sock on and making sexualized comments and things like that, with a bunch of complainants. Those complainants gang together to have him taken down. So the BBC that employed him 10 years ago now sack him for essentially the same reasons they got him in for, cancelled. But probably off he goes to alternative media, where things are much more interesting culturally, to be frank. And the MSM is feeling that it's struggling to attract the young, let alone the switched on. So he'll probably find himself some sort of a home down there. And speaking of the MSM, Strictly Come Dancing, British institution, feeling the whip as well as celebs who go on to be paid a lot of money to be trained how to dance by strict Italian dancers, then find that that strict Italian dance training is in fact bullying. So or that's how it feels, and then goes to the papers and has them outed. And so if I were an Italian dance judge being accused of bullying, I wouldn't step foot on the country for how much money. And I'm sure lots of Italian judges, I forget these people's names, I'm sorry, are likely doing the same thing. And in further flamboyant news, Pink News are the LGBTQIA, etc., leading publication of the world, have been for a few years, but have also at the same time done about 200 hit pieces on J.K. Rowling and Graham Linehan for pointing out biological reality. So taking that side of the trans wars. But just recently, their two owners have been accused of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, one or the other, of their own staff, with having got drunk at parties and been touching inappropriately, apparently, allegedly. So Pink News is having its own difficulties on the other end of scandals than it usually forges. And Just Stop Oil having their own scandals, or not scandals, they're designed to annoy, and that's what they did. They got the headlines, but at the same time as getting the headlines for destroying art, chucking soup and paint over things, and stopping people getting to hospital, a bunch of old ladies and young students, which seems to be their constituents, got sent to prison. So bad for them. And but then one of them that got sent to prison, a septuagenarian, was supposed to come out halfway through, as usual, as is normal and is a good idea for prison. They couldn't get the tag on her ankle or her wrist because her wrist is too thin. So she was sent back to prison, which is the Ministry of Justice being as absolutely appalling as Just Stop Oil themselves. So, nobody wins from that one. And over in Syria, as we came up to Christmas and the New Year, Bashar al-Assad, the son of his father, whose name I forget, who was the dictator of the 20th century, Assad's the dictator of the 21st, but a mild-mannered ophthalmologist, was sent packing by Syrian rebels over the last few weeks as a bit of a surprise uprising to the MSM. Anyway, it's like what happened? And so he packed off to Russia, and properly his wife left him, and apparently she's coming back to London. So that's charming. But that's the end of an era for them, for the Assad dynasty, but being replaced by murderous people who hate the West as well. So another no-win. But we'll see how Trump, incumbent, responds to Ukraine and to Syria and to Gaza, all in his inbox, and he'll probably operate it in his deal-making way. So there we go. 2025 is upon us, and I hope to see you for another one of these annual things next year. Have a good one. Bye bye.